Let's just look at some of the dieting rules that are within the Arbonne program. So you're not allowed to have artificial sweeteners, alcohol, coffee, dairy, wheat and gluten containing foods, soy, right? Like you still have these kind of rules in order to do their program. And you have a lot of distributors saying it's just a lifestyle, it's not a diet. Hey guys, welcome to my channel, or welcome back. My name is Kat. I'm a registered dietitian nutritionist and online nutrition coach. And today we are talking about diet scams because they are a real thing. They are taking a lot of people's money. They are harming a lot of people's relationship with food, relationship with their body, and they're just not necessary. They're not necessary for having a lifestyle that is more healthy. They're not necessary for having a life that helps you to overall feel better and have that whole health piece. I always bring it back to the definition of health, which is that physical, mental, social, and emotional well-being, and that if you're doing something that helps your physical well-being, but it's harming other areas of your well-being, then it's not really healthy. So that's what we're getting into today with everything. As with all of my videos, this is 100% my opinion. So let's go. There are a lot of really unethical, in my opinion, things going on with nutrition coaching in the online world and outside, but mostly online. And not everything that I'm going to be talking about is actually a diet scam, but there are a lot of dieting scams that include these practices. So the first one that I see is it's selling you a lifestyle, or it's selling you this kind of dream, this idea of how much life can be better once you finish their program, or once you lose X amount of weight, or on the flip side, how your life will be that much more terrible or bad if you don't do their program. And I can't stand this because there are so many different ways of approaching health. And yes, there are times when having these kind of more significant changes in your body really does impact how you're able to show up and do different things. A good example is like riding roller coasters or being more comfortable in airplanes. And that kind of goes into a whole nother kind of topic. But specifically talking about how your life will be better or different. Your life doesn't start once you reach that point. You can start doing healthy practices. And I always go back to the actions. What are the actions that is surrounding that kind of program or plan? Are they actions that you're going to be able to do for that long-term basis? Are they actions that are really building those skills that help you to have that whole health piece? Because if it is just focused on that changing your body and getting to a specific weight, and it's not really talking about the more action pieces of what's going to happen, then it's really just a yo-yo diet in disguise. They might have some examples of, once you lose this amount of weight, you're going to have so much energy, you're going to be able to play with your kids and do all of these amazing things, when in reality, if we just focus on building healthy actions, or actions that support your health, physical, mental, social, and emotional well-being, and we're able to build those skills to do them consistently, then you'll get to that place too. You don't have to put so much of that focus, or focus in general, on that specific weight piece, and move that focus and that energy and attention into the actual action pieces. As long as you do them, you will be at a healthy place for you, whatever that looks like. Now, as I was mentioning about the if you don't do this program or plan, then your life will be bad kind of thing, they're trying to use more of that fear-based marketing. Now, I have never taken a formal marketing class. I don't know. But from Google, what I have found, and if you are a marketing expert or you have a degree in marketing, if you have a degree in marketing or you are an expert in marketing in any way, I would love to hear your thoughts below in a comment. But what I have found through Google is that there are, and there's other different kinds of marketing too, but there is like fear-based marketing, there is inspiration-based marketing, and also information-based marketing. And I tend to fall into the information-based marketing just because I don't like to be sold to with fear, and I don't like to be sold to with inspiration. And I do know that there is going to be some of that, but I would rather be sold to personally with information, not fear and not inspiration. And so because that's the way that I like my information, I try to do that for other people too. And I am well aware that information-based marketing doesn't sell as much as fear-based or inspiration-based marketing, and that is okay. That's just something that I come to terms with. What are you doing? That I have come to terms with because that fits my values and my branding better. Now, fear-based marketing doesn't need to be bad. It's not an inherently bad thing. An example of an article that I was reading online, it was talking about how Nike, they use the "just do it" tagline, and they said that it makes people fear missing out because they didn't commit in time. Another example of fear-based marketing is L'Oreal. They use the "because I'm worth it" to take aim at the insecurities of people regarding their appearance. And then the last one they mentioned was the FedEx, that they use a tagline "absolutely positively overnight" to make people fear missing a deadline. And with those examples, I don't think that they're harmful or anything. Like, I don't think they're overly using that fear-based marketing approach. But when it comes to nutrition plans, nutrition programs, a lot of them go above and beyond to scare people into health or into nutrition. And when you look at the science of behavior change and just how people are able to maintain actions and everything, you don't want to focus on fear, because it is not either. On one hand, it's not sustainable for a lot of people. You can't like bully people or scare people into doing a lot of things for long term. Maybe it might like instigate something, or it might encourage them to start being a little bit more intentional with their health. But a lot of times, in my experience, what I have seen is that people get burnt out by that kind of approach, or they start to develop really an unhealthy relationship with food or their body and start to fear it and kind of start to really be scared of everything that they're eating. What are you doing? Do you want to get down? You can if you want. Go. Okay, so whenever I see really emotion producing ideas or even feelings coming out from advertisements with nutrition or diets or anything like that, that is an immediate red flag, and one that I would highly encourage you to just be aware of whenever you are seeing some kind of marketing around a nutrition or fitness program. And remembering that food is so much more than just fuel. You'll see this kind of idea that food is fuel. We need to treat it as fuel. We need to just eat to like do what we need to do as far as physical activity goes, and like that's it. When in reality, food is so much more than fuel. Food is joy, food is love, food is connection, food is memories. One of my favorite things about just being a human and just the idea of humans is that every single culture, like throughout time, even now, when people who are very different from you, very different from me, everybody gathers around food. And it doesn't matter whether the event is a happy event, a sad event, or even a neutral event, everybody gathers around food. And so to reduce food, to take it from all of those things, the connection, the joy, the love, and the memories, and to reduce it down to fuel, it takes the human piece out of it, and it just makes it not fun. And I feel like we need to approach food in just being more human. And when we are able to be more human, it allows us to also be a little bit more intentional with what we're choosing and what we're eating. And it allows us to get curious about how and why we're approaching certain foods, how our mood is, what's going on with us, how we're feeling, what we really want, what we really don't want, and to just be more human. And I think just reducing the food down to fuel, I'm not here for it. And then remembering that health is not just that physical piece. If you just focus on that physical piece in your life and you have relationship issues or other things going on, they're not just going to magically disappear once you change your body. They can be a little bit different, sure, but your life is still gonna be your life. It's not gonna completely be someone else's life. It's not gonna completely change. If you have things going on that you haven't really addressed, being a different size likely is not going to change that. And so when I see these programs and they're just so focused on that physical piece, and yes, you can kind of argue that that is within that program's creator's scope of practice, which I can fully appreciate, but there still needs to be more awareness that health is so much more than that physical piece. And when we have this kind of rhetoric or this idea that that's all we need to focus on, it's not going to be sustainable, it's not going to last, and it's not going to be that true health. All right, so this next one, it gets me heated, it just frustrates me, and it is marketing verbiage. It kind of goes along with that previous piece of that fear-based marketing approach. Now, when I see words like clean eating or toxins or superfood or superfruits. We talked about a little bit about superfruits in the Beachbody video when I went over Shakeology, and there is no definition for superfood and there's no definition for superfruits. Yes, we can kind of come to the conclusion or idea that those superfoods have very nutrient dense profiles, right? They're going to have a lot of nutrients in them, but there is not this specific definition. And so like, where's the line? Where is it becoming a superfood or superfruit? When does it not? It is purely a marketing term. Same thing with clean eating. What specifically defines that? And you could say, you know, minimally processed, doesn't have added ingredients, doesn't have added sugars or anything like that. But really, whenever I'm saying eat a clean food is because maybe you had an apple and it fell on the floor and it has dirt on it. You want to wash it and make it clean. That is the only kind of clean food, clean eating that I will encourage people to have. It brings into the idea of food morality. And I know some people have a problem with that. That's okay. This is my channel. This is what I'm going to talk about. But I see food as neutral. And I help people and I encourage people to see food as neutral because it takes the power out of food. There's a lot underneath it. When we're able to see food as neutral, it really allows us to approach food with more curiosity, compassion, and context too. Now, in my isogenics video, I talked specifically about toxins and all of the different organs that are part of getting toxins out of our body, which if you haven't watched the isogenics video, go watch that after this one. But even when plans or programs say that they're like cutting out the sugars, or when people say like, I'm not going to eat sugar for X amount of days, join me in this kind of plan or program, I just get frustrated. And it's just marketing verbiage. They're still eating foods that contain glucose. And glucose is a simple sugar. It is a monosaccharide, which is one mono and then saccharide. That's what we call carbohydrate chains. Now, even vegetables, non-starchy vegetables have glucose in them. They have sugar in them. Even when you look at broccoli, let's look at broccoli. Broccoli, 1 cup chopped, has 6 grams of carbohydrates. Most of that is in fiber, but it has 1.5 grams of glucose, of sugar. And for people who are just trying to eat healthier, like, that's fine. I can understand that they're meaning like no added sugars. I got that. I know what it means. But when I see people who are creating the programs and they themselves are saying no sugar, they're the ones creating the program. I'm not going to judge somebody who doesn't realize that there is glucose, there is sugar in non-starchy vegetables. Like, not everybody's gonna know that. That's okay. That's part of what my job is and that education piece. But if somebody is creating a program and they're creating this kind of challenge or this plan and they're saying this and they're encouraging other people to do it alongside them, that is the issue that I come into. That is what I see as that scammy kind of practice. Because if you're not aware of what the chemistry of the food is, and I hold those people at a much higher standard than somebody who is just doing it alongside with them. Like, that's fine. This is specifically talking about the makers of the programs when they say no sugars and then they, yeah. But I know like the intention is on no added sugars piece, like that I understand 100%. But if you are creating a program or a plan then I believe that you have the responsibility in educating people. People are smart. They will understand if you say that a vegetable has a sugar, but this is why we're not going to count it or why we don't see it as an added sugar kind of thing. And by them just blanket saying no sugar, it just makes nutrition information that much more confusing. And I would say that the reason why most people are really confused about nutrition and why there's so much misinformation about nutrition in our world is because of people who are not really educated in it and just like talking about information that they heard in one video or they read in one book, and it kind of just is this telephone kind of thing, and it just gets taken out of context. And then all of a sudden you have people who have just read those books or watched those videos or scrolled on Instagram, and now they're creating these kind of programs without that other education piece, and it just gets so confusing. This video has kind of turned into a ranting video, but another term that I see a lot in scams that are diet, not all of them are scams, but a lot of scams do this, is they'll talk about gut health too. And what I find really funny is that a lot of these people who are specializing or focusing in gut health can't even tell me the difference between IgE responses, IgG responses, MRT responses in the body when it comes to different food sensitivities, food allergies, and other kind of nutrition related things. And a good example of this is in my Beachbody video, how there was that coach talking about how it helped her gut health, and that if you have any of those kind of symptoms, she recommends you to have that. And I talked about why Shakeology in particular is helpful for some people's digestive health, while it's really not helpful for other people's digestive health. I went through those ingredients, and so if you haven't seen that, go check that out, because there are specific ingredients that are the reason why some people who drink Shakeology either have good reactions or not so good reactions. It was very clear as soon as I saw those ingredients what the issue was. The next kind of thing I see with diet scams is that they push a specific product alongside a whole list of lots of different other dieting rules. We have seen examples of this in all of the different nutrition related companies that I have talked about so far, is that they have this kind of diet and they have products alongside with them. And at the end of the 15 days or 30 days or however long it is, you'll start to feel different. If you do something for that amount of time, you will likely feel different. But they're saying that the differences that you're feeling and all of the positives are because of that specific product, and not because you took out all of the foods that really weren't helping you in the first place. Now, there are a lot of really great products that just aren't sold in stores, a lot of protein products, a lot of those kind of things, even snack products, and especially if you live in a more rural kind of place or any kind of food desert, yes, you're not going to have the availability as far as specific products go. But for the most part, the idea that if you are doing a plan, you shouldn't need to follow this specific or buy the specific kind of product. You can have a very healthy intake, a very healthy diet without having to special order any kind of foods. You really should be able to do that with foods that you would find in a normal grocery store. And as I mentioned, like for food deserts, or if you live in a really rural part of the place that you're living, then it might be a little bit harder, which, I totally understand that. But overall, foods that you find in a grocery store that should be good for overall promoting your health without having to purchase this really expensive kind of supplement. So the next kind of scammy practice I see, and a lot of people who do this, they aren't scammers, they don't have a scammy product, but again, a lot of the people who do have scammy products also have this. So that's before and after pictures. Now, before and after pictures can be really helpful for some people, but because they are so easily manipulated, that is one of the reasons why I do not do any before and after pictures in my business. You can change how your body looks by your posture, by the lighting, even contouring. So many people use contouring on their stomach, on their abs, in the same way that people use contouring on their face. It is a well-known trick, and it is a well-known thing that people do contour their after pictures and also suck in their stomach. And in reality, even if there was no actual any kind of manipulation and it was a true before and after, it still does not give me any information on how the actions are actually, what is going on with the actions. Are they healthy? Are they sustainable? Is that person getting in enough nutrients? The before and after idea, that tells me nothing about health status. It doesn't tell you if that person, one, is healthy. It also doesn't tell you if the actions that that person is doing is healthy. And so I know a lot of people love before and afters, and if you want to do that for yourself, I think that do you. But talking about the people creating programs and creating plans, if you're a provider and you love doing before and after pictures, I'm not going to hate you or anything like this. I really don't want somebody to watch this and feel like I'm attacking them. This is not them, this is just different actions going on. But it doesn't say anything about that health piece, because you can be at a healthy weight and have terrible blood lipid panels, have a really high blood pressure, have really uncontrolled blood glucose levels. It doesn't tell me anything. And I understand that that's more of the aesthetic side to things. So if you want to have that, if you're a nutrition coach or a wellness coach or a personal trainer or anything and you want to show that, do what you need to do. But I am just saying for myself in this video, because they're so easily manipulated, that is why I generally I'm not the biggest fan of them. Okay, the next one. Oh, this one, man, I have to make a video specifically on this to go more in depth, but it is selling the anti-diet rhetoric when it's still a diet. Now, I have nothing against, if you want to sell a weight loss plan, if you want to do a weight loss plan, that is okay, that is fine. But if you are providing that kind of plan, call it for what it is, and don't say that it's anti-diet or that it is intuitive eating and then attach dieting rules to it. It's so flashy right now. It looks good to say that you are anti-diet and that you're all for intuitive eating and this kind of body positivity. That's good. It's showing up more. It's more people are clicking it. More people are interested in learning about it. It is becoming more of the, at least on social media, it's becoming a really attractive kind of way of approaching nutrition and health. And I mentioned this in my Arbonne video, how a lot of people, even the information around their 30 days to healthy living says that it is a lifestyle. A lot of distributors will say that it is a lifestyle, it's not a diet, when there are dieting rules to it. Let's just look at some of the dieting rules that are within the Arbonne program. So you're not allowed to have artificial sweeteners, alcohol, coffee, dairy, wheat and gluten containing foods, soy, right? You still have these kind of rules in order to do their program. And you have a lot of distributors saying it's just a lifestyle, it's not a diet. And when you see intuitive eating and having people attach weight loss to their intuitive eating program, that's not how it works. Intuitive eating, it's a framework. It's by 2 registered dietitians that was from 96 or 95, and they have had further updates to their book. It is a book that I love. It was a book that I first read when I was still in my undergrad studies. It really shaped my practice and how I approach nutrition, and as I was getting into my internship kind of residency part, I would listen to it in audio form even after reading the book, and it's just something that I love. But I don't say that I practice intuitive eating, because a lot of people put their own definition on it. A lot of people don't know that it is a framework with principles within it. So when you put your own definition on it, it's really confusing. And which is why what I call what I do empowered eating or intentional eating, I think that fits more of the definition and kind of understood a little bit differently and more of kind of what I do. But when I see people attaching intuitive eating with weight loss, that is a scammy practice, because that is not how those dietitians who created intuitive eating, who have a intuitive eating certified course you can go through in order to be a provider of it, to say that you are a provider of it, to attach the weight loss piece, that is just a really scammy kind of behavior in my opinion. And I don't think that's really nice to take these two dietitians approach who don't have it attached to weight loss and then attaching weight loss and using their name, the framework that created. I just see it as a kind of scammy practice. And whenever I see intuitive eating with weight loss as a program, somebody selling it, that is an immediate red flag that is pretty scammy, and they're just kind of straddling the line. They want to appeal to those people who want, less dieting rules, but they're also trying to appeal to those people who want those dieting rules, and it's just not here for it. Now, the same thing can also be said for body positivity and HAES, and how it has been co-opted on Instagram and on YouTube and on just social media in general. Now, body positivity has a very rich history, and so does HAES. Now, first off, HAES does not stand for healthy at every size. It stands for health at every size, and it does not mean that somebody at X amount of weight where they can't move or anything is healthy. That is not what it means. Now, every time I say this, somebody will have to say, what about that person who's 700 pounds? Do you really think they're healthy? And to that I say, can we not look at the extremes? Can we see nutrition and how we approach it and everything at less extreme points? Now, I'm going to read some of my notes so I get this right. HAES is about creating an inclusive and respectful community and support people of all sizes finding compassionate ways to take care of themselves. To take care of themselves. HAES grew out of an anti-discrimination movement led by Black and LGBT women in the 1960s. The origins of body positivity was intended as a collective positive or neutral look at the body beyond its roles, but also its health status, trauma, and experience of stigma and racism and gender identity. It supports people of all sizes in addressing health directly by adopting healthy behaviors. It is an inclusive movement recognizing that our social characteristics such as our size, race, national origin, sexuality, gender, disability status, and other attributes are assets, and acknowledges and challenges these structural and systemic forces that impinge on living well. And so a lot of people will take HAES and be like, oh, it's not healthy and it's not ethical to practice it or to promote its kind of ideas, when in reality, just rewind this to listen to what it is actually and what it stands for. And the problem with HAES and body positivity and even intuitive eating is that the idea surrounding it, the framework, the reason why they were created so often gets co-opted for diets, for creating dieting programs and plans. And I'm not going to fault anybody who does those, who are on the other side, who are just trying to learn about what they are and kind of how to approach everything. But who I am faulting and who I am frustrated at are the creators of those programs, because as a creator, as a program planner, developer within the nutrition, as a nutrition professional or expert, you have a responsibility. And I understand that it is really hard to stand out in today's world on social media with nutrition and everything, but this is why I see it turning into a scammy kind of approach. And a good example of this, Alonda Carter from the Recovering Humbot, she recently did a video about one of the top Beachbody coaches. And on her Instagram, she has so much anti-diet, kind of intuitive eating rhetoric. And at the same time, she has stories, even on her highlights page, talking about the 3-day refresh and the other kind of programs within Beachbody that are diet. And she has this kind of community outside of Beachbody where she does monthly coaching calls on body positivity and intuitive eating. But when I see her offering those things, and also talking about doing the refresh and other kind of programs, they don't, it's frustrating. And it sells. It is so flashy, it is catchy, because you get kind of the best of both sides, when in reality, there is a reason why you have providers, actual mental health professionals, actual medical health professionals, therapists, counselors, registered dietitians who are working within the field of HAES and intuitive eating. They don't recommend doing things like the reset or the refresh or whatever the Beachbody programs are. I did the whole video on it. It was 3-day refresh and 21-day ultimate reset. I think that's what it was. But anyway, with these scams, a lot, they will be so attractive to people who do want to approach a better, healthy relationship with food and their body, and then they just get sucked into this diet that looks like a lifestyle that is healthy, but in reality, they're still having to drink these shakes, they're still doing these resets, which if you don't know about the refreshes or the resets of Beachbody, then check out my other videos on Beachbody that I just did. And within there, I show even a video on a coach who was talking about how it helped her with her eating disorders and her binge eating disorder. Those things are outside of the scope of the coaches. Those really need to be approached with a mental health professional and on a team, if they're working with a team, also a registered dietitian to help them in that nature. Because when you start bringing in the relationship with food and more of that mental side and the emotional side of food, you really want to make sure that you're not going to encourage someone to go into an unhealthier place with their relationship with food and push them into more disordered eating habits. It is a spectrum, it is a slippery slope, and a lot of the plans who take the anti-diet rhetoric are scams, in my opinion. Another sign that I see with diet scams is just showing these extreme progress pictures. We talked about pictures a little bit already, but just these extreme kind of stories. And we need to realize that what works for one person might not work for someone else. And even for one person in particular, what worked for them at one time might not work for them at another time. Because whenever we are doing these kind of yo-yo dieting practices, that impacts our metabolism. That impacts how our body is going to react to that kind of program down the line. And so that's why you might have somebody do, the 30 days healthy living and get this, specific kind of results, do it again a couple months later and not get the same kind of results. So when I see these kind of programs kind of trying to base someone else's outcome, like, you have to take that with a grain of salt. What was that person's story? What was going on? Did they completely change their life around? Are you currently pretty much overall having a healthy approach? So whenever you make these changes, you might not feel the same impact. Like, there is just so much to think about when you're reading testimonials. And I do go back and forth with this. I think it is good to have some testimonials just so people know that you're like a real person. But I also struggle with the idea of adding testimonials even to my website and to my practice. But I think it also depends on what that testimonial says more so, and what is included in there of how they were able to listen to you, listen to your struggles, kind of make a plan that was helpful for you, and kind of that supportive side too, rather than I lost X amount of pounds on this program. If you're looking for the testimonials, try to look more so at what the structure of that program was versus the outcome, because the outcome is going to change person to person. That structure shouldn't change from person to person. Does that make sense? The next scam that I see is if their model depends on having this kind of forever client. So this is different from having, a monthly check-in or doing nutrition periodization. A lot of athletes will do this when they'll go on this kind of massing plan, and then they'll go on a maintenance, and they might go on a cut to reduce some of the added fat that they got when they were trying to mass and getting more muscle, and then after that cut they'll go on that maintenance and then another massing, and this is just something that we see a lot in highly competitive athletes, or weekend athletes too, who really just want to focus on that more aesthetic piece or more on that performance piece of that muscle change. That's a whole nother thing. I don't want to get into that right now, but this was something that I brought up in my Herbalife video, and how one of the presentations for the distributors themselves, it had a note of getting to know your customer and trying to figure out what all the things they need so that you can keep them as a client for as long as you can by selling them products. And that is just a scammy behavior in my opinion, and what I don't like about nutrition programs and plans. I think that if you're working with a registered dietitian or nutrition coach in some way, that you should be working on building skills so that you don't need their services down the line. Again, having a check-in every, here and there, every now and again, that's completely understandable. But you should not, in my opinion, be so reliant on having someone give you this kind of meal plan. It's just, that doesn't teach you how to do it yourself. And that's why I don't want to work with people for, their lifetime. I just want to work on building skills, breaking them down into practices, into actions, and then letting them fly, because there are so many more people that need that help. And if you are reliant on having to drink a shake every day in order to lose weight, just ask yourself if you want to do that for the rest of your life. And if you don't, then that's not really a plan that I would recommend, just because it doesn't build those skills. And yes, you might see that change from implementing that shake kind of meal, but at what cost? What is maintenance gonna look like? Which leads into the next red flag, is if the program or plan does not talk about a maintenance piece. Maintenance is the most important part of any kind of nutrition plan or program or anything. Maintenance is what is going to just make or break everything, because that maintenance time, when you're done with the program, that's when that yo-yo back up usually happens. This is why a lot of people end up dieting their way up to a higher weight. They'll lose 20 pounds, they'll gain 25, lose 30, gain 35. It's this kind of dieting up thing that happens that is so common. So again, this is why it is so important to build those skills and not just follow this kind of dieting plan. And that is the reason why I see the ones that don't focus on building skills and that maintenance piece as scam. They can be seen as reputable overall, but in my book, it's just a scam, because if you have a program that is reliant on you losing and gaining, and then losing more and then gaining and then continuing up to a higher weight, that is a scam. If you are looking at doing a program or a plan, just kind of, even if you're seeing people who've been part of that, doing that program or that plan for decades, just kind of losing and gaining and losing and gaining, like, is it not a scam? Because what you should want to have, what you should, like, expectation wise, if I was on the other side and if I wasn't a provider, I would want something that I don't have to continue getting service from, because I see it as a scam. I just think that focusing so much on that weight change piece and not focusing attention on that maintenance piece, I think that is the scam. And that is something that I hardly see anybody doing in this field, in nutrition coaching, and it's a shame, because this is how the industry has turned into like $1 billion. I don't have the statistics, but I know it's more than $1 billion industry, because it keeps people in there. You're on this wheel of losing and gaining and losing and gaining and losing and gaining and not building those skills. It's a scam. Okay, so This is kind of long, but I wanted to leave you with some things to remember. If you are looking for a program or a plan, remember that health is not just that physical piece. If you are doing something really helping your physical piece, but it's harming those other areas of health, then it's not truly healthy. Also remember that when you start to get rid of dieting rules and these arbitrary restrictions, a lot of times, and I like to use the example of the pendulum, that's an easy example a lot of people identify with, is that if you pull up on this side with the restrictions, as soon as you let go, it's going to go in the opposite direction, where a lot of times that's overconsumption past what you would like to consume. It's where you have discomfort and just kind of this overconsumption experience. I also really like to use the example of like breathing underwater. So if you can imagine breathing underwater, trying to breathe through this tiny straw, and it doesn't matter how long they've been breathing through this tiny straw, when they get out of the water and they can now breathe in full breaths of air, their body is going to compensate. They're going to take in very large breaths of air. And so after a while, depending if they've been underwater for a long time trying to breathe through the straw, it's probably going to take their body longer and it's going to take more of those deep, full breaths versus if they just barely got under the water and were under there for less time. So I like to use that analogy for when we start to kind of get rid of dieting rules and restrictions. A lot of times what happens is when people get out of the water, or they start to shed those kind of rules and restrictions, they tend to compensate. And so we see that in the form of overconsumption of specific foods, and it's scary for a lot of people. It's totally understandable that it just kind of feels out of control, in the same way that when you are now able to take a full breath of air when you're out of the water, you can't control how your body is really going to inhale the air, right? It's just gonna do it naturally. And so after a while though, once your body has received enough air and it's at a calmer state, you then have normal kind of breaths going on. Same thing with those dieting rules and restrictions. After that overcompensation piece, then a lot of times that's when you start to feel less of that out of control feeling around food. But unfortunately, that takes time depending on how long you were underwater. And it really helps to work with somebody who can help guide you through that piece, because what happens a lot of times is people will experience that overconsumption piece and it's scary, understandably, and they'll go back underwater because it's safer and it's more comfortable and it's just what they know. And they'll do that by falling for some kind of dieting scams. And if you have that, that's totally understandable. There's a reason why they are so prevalent. There's a reason why I am making this video, because I see them so often. And just realizing that depending on where your health status is, where your relationship with food, where your relationship with your body is, it might look different. Your plan might be different from somebody else's who maybe just needs a little bit of tweaking here and there, or guidance in one direction or another. So oh, and then another scammy thing is to be aware of, to just look for the qualifications, and if that person is providing any kind of medical nutrition therapy, which is any kind of nutrition in regards to a specific kind of medical condition. And that includes gut health, that includes even eating disorders. And when I see people who don't have licensure to do medical nutrition therapy in their states or anything, I just see that as a scam, because it's not only illegal, but it can be harmful if they don't understand all of the different things that we need to understand and think about when we are doing medical nutrition therapy. And so just look at the state requirements, look at their credentials. Are they providing just, kind of general nutrition information? Cool. Just look. So I realize that there are a lot of things that I said in this video that some people might not like, and that is okay. I think we can have a very healthy discussion on certain things. And again, not all of the people who do these kind of things are scams or scammers, but a lot of the programs and plans that I see and the people that I see who are scamming and scammers do these things as well. But I would love to hear your comments below if you have anything to add to this, or if you have any rebuttals or anything that you didn't like. Also, leave me a comment down below. I love to respond and just have a conversation. Now, I forgot to mention this in some of the previous videos. My next video, I have several different pictures that I've either received or have found myself that give some examples of these kind of scammy behaviors and scammy things. And so if you have any that you would like to share with me, please feel free to send me a DM on Instagram, or check out my email down below, callingoutbodyshame@gmail.com. It can be about nutrition, it can be about body shaming kind of things. I like talking about those kind of things, and I think it's important to talk about those things. If you haven't followed me on Instagram, I'm trying to post more often, but I would love if you followed me there. All right, I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.
Thank you.